I'm delighted to say today I'm joined by Roya Abedi. Now, Roya, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for having me. And this is the first time that I'm an interview like this, and I'm super excited. Thank you very much. I'm doing great.
I'm glad to hear it. That's a much nicer sentiment than most people at the start of the podcast. So, before we delve more into the sort of the fine details of your career, because you've had such an interesting career path, and that's why we wanted to speak to you. But let's go right from the start. What was it like? What was your childhood like, and how did you develop such a passion for the English language? Because I'm really interested to know how that came about.
Interesting, because I didn't follow the tradition path of being an English teacher normally. By I don't know, by going to the university, studying, teaching, or studying English studies. Instead, I was a language learner, and after reaching an advanced level, I decided to be an English teacher. And I was inspired by my private tutor because she told me, she was my person that told me that you are somehow talented and you can learn new languages easily. So go and pass some TTC courses and be an English teacher because you have the ability to actually do this. So at first I just wanted to give it a shot, but after that I realized that I was an English teacher.
Hmm. I love that. So, what was your exposure to English-speaking media growing up in Iran? Because we've spoken to another Iranian guest, Sarah Lamy, who told us about films and pop music and getting films on cassette and kind of transcribing back. So what was your exposure to English-speaking media like?
To be honest with you, my main exposure was just going to different English classes and having a private tutor. But at the same time, I used to watch a lot of American movies because I love American accent
Hmm.
and watching TV series and listening to pop music. But I think those things, I mean, watching TV series, podcasts, I should say that I used to be, and at the same time, actually, I used to be a big fan of podcasts.
Hmm.
Right now, no, I don't know why, but those days, as a language learner, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I cannot say that those podcasts, TV series, and the other materials weren't useful for me,
Hmm.
but they weren't the main source for me, the main method for me to learn English. But yes, I had exposure, a lot of exposure, I think.
Hmm. I think the perception is certainly in the West is that there's kind of confusion as to how far music and films and that kind of thing spreads across the world because I think people make all sorts of assumptions. So um, I just had to ask actually as well. Was there any particular podcast that you listened to and that really gave you inspiration?
Right. Yes. BBC podcasts.
Hmm.
I said that I love American accent, but I used to listen to BBC podcasts, which are British podcasts
Hmm.
from BBC, and especially BBC 6 Minutes.
All right.
And they were super useful for me. I remember those days when I wanted to go to work, it took me like an hour and a half to go and again to come back. So all in all, 3 hours on my way to work, and I was driving, and I vividly remember those days that I was listening to those podcasts on and on. And I think they were like a magic for me.
Hmm. Cool. So, you've talked a little bit about private English tutoring. I was wondering, what was your school experience like? Is it easy to learn English in the Iranian schooling system, or do you have to sort of look outside to really get into the sort of finer points of the English language?
Mm. Unfortunately, I should say that it's not easy. It's not that easy in Iran
Hmm.
to learn English, especially at school, because students start learning English in secondary school, not primary school.
Okay.
And the English that they learn is not that useful and practical because it's all about grammatical rules. They don't learn how to speak in the other language in English.
Hmm.
And I think the methods that they use, teachers, uh, and schools use is not that practical and standard even now, even these days. So for my case, no exception. I didn't learn anything at school. And after that, not anything, just rules, but I couldn't speak. It's better to say I couldn't speak. But after that, by going to different classes, English classes, by exposure, as I told you, by listening to podcasts, by watching movies, by studying on my own, I could speak English almost fluently those days.
I mean, it is kind of incredible as well, the fact that you've, been able to learn to be as fluent as you are, to the extent of being an English teacher. And so much of that is self-directed. And that's definitely the vibe that we've got, not just yourself, but Sarah, who was on the last series. That seems to be the kind of experience. So I wondered this as well, when you're growing up in Iran, and I think there are, people do make assumptions about Iran and what it's like to live in Iran, but did it feel possible to kind of explore the world when you were growing up? Did it feel possible to kind of, did it feel within your grasp to go and travel and work and that kind of thing? Or did it seem like it was kind of much more difficult? Where did you kind of want to go?
No, I should say I didn't. I didn't feel that I can go to see the world. I was daydreaming to travel to the other countries because I've always wanted, still I want to see the New York City, for example, see the US, and maybe now that I'm living in Italy, it's not like a dream anymore, but it used to be like a dream when I was living in Iran, and that I was born and raised in Iran. So it sounded impossible, as it sounds impossible now for everybody who's living in Iran. So it's not easy traveling to the other countries for Iranian people, because for all countries you need the visa, and getting the visa is is something complicated, totally complicated.
Absolutely. And Italy as well seems like a particularly difficult place to get a visa, but you're there and you're working there. We will kind of get onto that stage in your career a bit later on. So just kind of, again, sort of going back to the sort of roots of where your English teaching dream kind of sprouted. You, and if I get the pronunciation of this wrong, do immediately correct me, but you earned a degree in engineering from the Malaya University?
Malayer.
Third time's a charm.
Malayer is my home.
Excellent. So, obviously that kind of points at there was a different career in mind at one stage. So can you tell us about that experience and when you sort of realized you maybe weren't going to be an engineer as a career? Because that's kind of interesting divergence there.
Maybe to you it sounds interesting, but to me it's not. It's one of my biggest regrets in my whole life. I think choosing studying like civil engineering at university was a mistake for me, and if I hadn't chosen that major as my bachelor's degree, probably I could study like in a major for my master's degree, like teaching or English studies or something like this, or even I could have a better job right now, because I'm not that satisfied with the job that I have right now in Italy. So I think it was just a mistake. And those days, probably because, in Iran, there was a belief that you have to be whether a doctor or an engineer.
Okay.
In the future, it's like a dream job for everybody to be an engineer or to be a doctor. And because of my friends, maybe because of my family, I don't know, they didn't push me to do so, but I did. But after a while, I realized that I didn't like it, but I couldn't change it. So, even now, maybe, I don't know whether it's necessary to explain or not. Even now in Italy, I'm studying something that I do not like because of my bachelor's degree. So that's why that I told you it's one of my biggest mistakes and regrets.
I mean, just kind of on that, you talk about kind of there wasn't pressure necessarily kind of explicitly to do engineering. And you said something interesting there that people were ever expected to be doctors or engineers. What are the kind of other sort of main careers when you're growing up in Iran that kind of people expect you to go into? Are those the kind of big two? Are there any others?
Yes, there were actually, and still actually these days there are. These days, because of the social media, everything is clear and better, and students can choose their path easily, I think, easier than those days. because those days I was studying math at high school, and I don't know whether you're familiar with the education system in Iran or not, but after high school, we have to pass a TOEFL exam, like a concur, to go to the university. And if you are studying math, at the end you can enter to engineering world or something like this. If I wanted to be a teacher, I didn't want to be a teacher. Probably those days I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that I was good at teaching. Probably I didn't know. My mother was a teacher, primary school, but I'd never felt that, okay, I want to be a teacher in the future. I don't know why, but after 10 years, I realized that, okay, I'm good at teaching, so I should go and teach English to the others. English is this thing that I know that, I'd been studying English for years. So even now I feel my students very well and I can help them. So
definitely, and it gives you a level of empathy. Having had a career where you weren't necessarily enthusiastic about it, and then changing something that you're passionate about. I think that's something that, obviously your case is different and everyone's individual story is different, but it's, that is a very familiar path where people go like, oh, I don't really like this. I'm going to do the thing I really care about. So actually, there's a really interesting kind of point there. So you said your mum was a primary school teacher. How did she feel about you making that move to teaching? Did she say anything like, oh, she always kind of saw you as a teacher, but didn't want to push you a certain way? Or was there anything like that?
She's excited. She's so happy. And actually, when I started here teaching at kindergarten, she helped me a lot because she used to, now she's retired, but she used to work with children because she used to teach students at primary school, the first and the second grade. So she knows these students very well, their emotions, their behavior, the skills that I needed to help them. So she helped me a lot and she's happy. And always she said that I'm proud of you and you're a good teacher. So because everybody, I don't want to give myself a compliment, but the parents of these students, now I'm mainly working with the children at kindergarten and I teach English at kindergarten, and the parents all the time say that my kid loves you and my kid can understand you, or my kid, is like, you are like a role model to my kid. So my mother, I tell all of these things to my mother, and she always says that I'm proud of you. So she's excited and happy.
I love that as well. And I've also, there's a common kind of thread here as well, where when women come on the podcast, they always apologize for like telling me about the kind of nice things that people say or like the sort of achievements that they've made. This is absolutely the platform to give yourself compliments. It's a wonderful thing, and without kind of without, I don't know, putting too much kind of importance on this podcast, we do seek out people who have interest in individual stories to tell. So, I hope that is viewed as a compliment as well. Let's talk again about the start of that teaching journey. So, how did you kind of get things moving? What was your first job like, and how did you kind of feel taking on this challenge?
Wow. It's totally different than the other teachers. So normally teachers start teaching general English to the students, probably from like the basic level, elementary, and then pre-intermediate, and blah 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 blah, and then they move on to, if they want to teach IELTS techniques to these students. But in my case, it was totally different. Why? Because I started teaching English to the students right after my IELTS exam. So I knew everything about the IELTS exam because, for the exam like IELTS, apart from the GE and general English, you have to know techniques and strategies. You have to be test-wise and well prepared for the exam. And I knew everything. And I've sat the IELTS test like twice. And that time, right after that, my private tutor told me that, okay, now you are like an advanced level, go participate in some local TTC courses. And I participated in one local TTCs, like CELTA-based TTC, and it was super useful for me. And right after that, they offered me to go and to work in their institute, but it was in the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic.
All right.
And I couldn't go there. I couldn't because I was scared. Everybody was scared, and nobody wanted to work in like the other places. Everybody wanted to stay at home. So I rejected. I needed it because in order to be a good teacher, you need to work first for the others, I believe, because you need to be observed. Everybody, you need to, the other person who is more experienced and knowledgeable actually has to give you feedback. But I didn't have that opportunity because of coronavirus pandemic. So I started on my own. On my own, and I opened an Instagram page, and I gained it's incredible because I gained a lot of followers from the very beginning. I don't know why, but everybody trusted me. And they started asking me for private lessons and private classes. And after a while, like after 1 year, my classes were fully booked.
Wow.
And I didn't have enough time to accept more students. So it started like this, but after that it changed. And after that I could manage, I could find the other people that, perfect people or institutes to work with. And so this is the beginning of the story. I have a long story.
No, we're gonna cover as much of it as we can. But so tell me about the kind of students that you got, because you mentioned there that people would approach you on Instagram and trusted you and tried to get private lessons. So what kind of students are we talking about here? Are we talking about kind of a range of different ages? Did people have different kind of aims in terms of what they wanted to do with English? Like, what was your kind of general audience, if that's a fair question?
Actually, those days mainly I had adults, like IELTS candidates. Everybody in Iran wants to immigrate to another country because of the bad situation in Iran. Everybody wants to just get rid of that country. And I had a lot of IELTS candidates that with a low level of general English. So first, I started working on their GE, and after that, the IELTS techniques. So mainly adults. Okay, but if you're asking about now, these days, currently, I have the students like from 3 years old to 60 years old. A wide range of students here in Italy.
We will kind of cover more of your Italian experiences a little bit later on, but it's wild how things change. So in the midst of all this, you're building up your Instagram, your social media kind of presence, which obviously kind of lends itself to having private students and building the business. In the midst of that, you do a course with the University of Arizona. So can you tell us about what happened there, and what did you, as a student rather than the teacher in this scenario, what did you make of that kind of online study environment? Did you find it really fruitful?
Okay, the thing is, I couldn't find any reliable TTC courses in Iran. The course that I participated in was reliable because of the mentor, but the thing is, I knew that one day I'll immigrate to another country and this TTC course won't work for me. So I have to pass another course like CELTA, I don't know, like TESOL, like TEFL, but I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford none of them. And even I found the TEFL Org website on the net and I wanted to participate, but I realized that it wasn't affordable for me. One day, one of my friends told me that on Coursera platform, there's a TESOL course with a financial aid. So the reason that I participated in that course first was the financial aid, because in Iran, nothing was affordable for me. So to pay like weekly, I don't know, the price was for this course exactly on Coursera without the financial aid was like weekly 40 euros or $40 if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, I can't remember, but it wasn't affordable anyhow. So I applied for the financial aid first, and after 2 weeks, I realized that I got accepted. So I started immediately after that, and I realized, wow, such a good course. And it had a lot of assignments. It has actually two parts. The first part with 4 courses, and the second part with 4 more courses. The first 4, like, you can teach online, you can learn how to teach online, and it's about teaching like the system, like vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. It's about the how to write lesson plans and some other things. But the second part is all related to these skills, like listening, reading, how to teach writing and speaking to the students. And the second part has more assignments, and you have to, for both the first and the second part, you have to give demos and you have to teach, and they give you feedback, and after that they give you the degree from the Arizona State University. I found it super useful, and even sometimes when I have some students that I don't know what to do, when I don't know how to write the lesson plan for some specific students, again I refer to the course, I watch the video related to that part, and again I try to polish my knowledge and I try to use it. So I found it super useful.
Yeah, it sounds like a great experience. But your academic endeavors weren't done there. You went on to do a master's in Turin. So can you tell us about that move to Italy and to a city like Turin? What was that process of moving like for you, and how quickly did it take? How long did it take you sort of adapt to a completely different culture and a completely different academic experience? What was that like for you?
Again, it has a long story, but
Long stories are good.
I wrap it up and make it short for you.
Oh.
So, I mentioned a lot in this part today, is that everybody in Iran, especially young people, want to immigrate to another country because of the situation in Iran. And I wasn't an exception, and I'd been trying for like 6-7 years to immigrate to Canada,
Right.
but it didn't work. My husband and I waited a lot. We'd been waiting for years, but it didn't work. And one day that I was super disappointed with everything, with my life, with my career, with everything. One of my friends who had immigrated to Italy told me that, why don't you come here? Because you have the IELTS degree, you have all of the documents, just give it a try. Come here. You are an English teacher. There are lots of job opportunities for you here, because people here cannot speak English very well. So you are not coming to a country like, I don't know, the US or Canada. So probably you can find a job easily. And I decided to try, and I thought to myself, it's better to apply for like a university or a major related to my job, like teaching, like English studies. And I applied, for example, for Ca' Foscari, University of Venice, University of Bologna, University of even here in Turin, to study something related to my work, but all of them rejected me, and I got rejected and more disappointed because I realized, wow, so I cannot, because of that stupid background, like engineering, civil engineering, I have to again continue with the master's degree studying engineering. But the key and the thing was that if I actually hadn't applied for this major, again in something related to engineering, I wouldn't be here now, and I wouldn't have this job opportunity and this life here that I love here. So I decided to apply for something related to my background. A course, the name of the major is Digital Skills for Sustainable Societies. It sounded interesting to me, and I applied, and immediately I got accepted. So I realized that for Italian universities, your work experience is not as important as your academic background.
Right.
So I got accepted, and after that, I came here. And arrived here like in 22, I think, on the 10th of September, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, my husband joined me. I could even bring my husband here. And like it took us 6 months. But the thing is that after a month, because the first months here, we were just, sightseeing, going to different places, trying new things. And I started after that searching and looking for, a job opportunity. I was a job seeker that time, but it's like everybody, when people hear this are like, wow. And I was like, wow, how quick. After a week, I could find an institute, and they offered me an IELTS class because they knew my path, and I'd been working with IELTS students. So they gave me like a class of people, like the class of 5 students maybe. And after one session, they asked me to go to the institute, and they told me these students are super satisfied after the first session. So are you available to have more courses in this institute? And I said, yes, definitely, of course. And then they gave me more classes, not only for the IELTS, but even for Cambridge tests like CAE, FCE, or general English classes, private students. And so I was like full. And I couldn't study anymore. I passed 4 or 5 exams for the first year. And after that, my boss introduced me to another school, because I don't know whether you're familiar with the working in like environment, the policies in Italy, but in Italy it's not easy to have a long-term contract. But my boss introduced me to another school that I had the opportunity to work with them, this kindergarten that I'm working in, to have a long-term contract and to work with them forever, with somehow it was a well-paid job. And at the same time, I am working in that institute still. So I found it here, people super welcoming and actually supportive, kind. And I think they helped. For example, if my boss in the first institute hadn't introduced me to the other school, so I wouldn't have the situation that I have right now here in Italy. So I think they are good supports.
I mean, you preface that by saying this is a long story, but that's fascinating. There's so much kind of there, because we've certainly not covered what it's like to to sort of live and work in Italy to that degree. And I've got to ask this. I'm going off script a little bit here, but can you explain what the kind of emotions were like the first few weeks when you're there? Because you're in Italy, where they speak Italian. That's not your first language, and also you're in there trying to find work as an English teacher. So kind of juggling languages, getting used to a new place. Like, were you running on kind of excitement and adrenaline, and you were just like, oh, "This is fine, bring it on," or was it a bit like, "Okay, this is hard work"?
Yeah, exactly. It was exciting because, even when I was in Iran, I didn't used to talk in Persian in my classes. Mainly, I used to speak in English, because all of the TTC courses, they told us that you have to talk in English and you have to convey the meaning in English to students. So I knew how to do this, especially because of that TEFL course. So it wasn't that difficult for me to teach to them, but for them it was so exciting, because unfortunately, I don't know why, we are Iranian, and I know that probably we have a little bit Iranian accent while we talk in English. But even Italian teachers, English teachers, they have like intense Italian accent when they talk in English. Intense Italian accent. So the way that I was speaking to them was so fascinating to them. And because they actually couldn't talk to me in Italian, again, it was another thing that was like, they were super excited. Wow. So we have to, we are urged to speak in English. So I think it was a very, incredible experience for these students, and also at the same time for me.
I love that so much. I kind of wanted to follow on from what you're saying about your students, about the excitement of them having a teacher who speaks, with an Iranian accent as opposed to an Italian one. So, you help students prepare for the IELTS. That's something we've kind of covered. So tell me a bit about what kind of students you get in Italy, and what their kind of ambitions are, and how rewarding is it to know that you're helping people do these big, make these big moves in their life? Like, what's that kind of like for you?
Here in Chile, I've got a wide range of students. At kindergarten, students aged like 3 to 5, and at the institutes, adults with different goals. It depends. Some of them, because they work in companies. For example, I have a student who works in a company, and he has a German boss, but he has to talk in English to the boss. So because of their career, some of them want to learn English. Some other want to study in another country, for example, in the Netherlands or the other countries. So they want to get the IELTS degree to study in another country. But the number of them is not like a lot, Not many students want to get the IELTS degree. IELTS is not that famous as in Iran,
Right.
because people do not want to immigrate to other countries that much. I think this is the reason. Normally, they want to improve their general English, and they want to have a degree for that, to show, to prove to their companies, to their bosses, or the other places. So the Cambridge tests are like more favorable here in Italy. So people normally want to sit the Cambridge test, like CAE, like get the level of advanced, being an advanced level student. Normally these students are like this, not IELTS candidates.
I see. Okay, so obviously we talked before about the social media aspect of what you do, and I think this kind of ties in, because I was going to ask you, when you help students, especially adult students, kind of prepare for exams, whether it's IELTS, whether it's Cambridge, have you had people sort of keep up with you, and you've kind of seen them go on their journey? Are there any students that sort of come to mind where you think like, okay, no, I really did help them out there. They're over somewhere else doing this thing now and they're happy. Like, is that the most kind of rewarding part for you? And does anyone particularly come to mind when I ask that?
You were talking about my followers specifically?
Well, I guess, I mean, anyone who's kind of, booked a lesson with you, and then maybe they've moved country, or maybe they've got a new job that's much better than their old job, or that kind of thing. Are there any sort of particular stories you remember from people who have kind of kept in touch with you?
Yes, a lot of stories. I've got a lot of stories because that I have a website, and on the website there's a part just like a consultation. I normally talk to the students. Of course, they have to pay, but I talk to them. They talk about their problems with language learning. And since they know that I'm living in Italy, they ask some, like, I don't know, guidance, how to immigrate to Italy, and some of them how to become an English teacher, because everybody knows that first I used to be a language learner, and after that I became actually an English teacher. And recently I've uploaded a video about myself in Persian on YouTube, and I described everything, and I told them, I actually revealed everything, the path. So I got a lot of comments, and some of them was in the live session with me. We had a meeting, and she was crying so hard, and she said, I don't know, you are the reason that I'm crying right now, because after watching your live, after realizing that you had a lot of difficulties, and I felt the same. I felt that you are me. I felt that this life, your life was for me. So the things that you experienced are the things that right now I'm experiencing. So just help me. And I receive a lot of comments, on YouTube, on Instagram, in meetings with the other people, live meetings. So I talk to them a lot, and yes, they actually ask for help sometimes.
Right. And what's that like, being a role model to so many people? Did you ever consider, like, when you were on your kind of the journey to where you are now, and we'll talk obviously about your own business as well. We'll ask that next, but on a sort of kind of while following the path that you took to get here, did you ever consider that other people, especially people who want to become teachers, or whatever they want to do, sort of look at you as a role model? Did you ever consider that would happen, and what does that feel like?
Actually, I don't think that I'm a good role model for people. I don't know why, but all the time I think I'm not enough. And I know that I'm a hardworking person, but I don't know, because of, like, there's an imposter syndrome, if you know about it.
Yeah.
I don't know because of that or what, but I don't know. I'm not sure I'm a good role model, but when I've received this message as well a lot, that you are my role model. You are a hardworking person. We admire you, and so it feels like I'm excited. I'm flattered when people talk to me like this. It feels so good, but at the same time a huge responsibility, because I think that, okay, if I do something wrong, and I don't know, if I upload it on Instagram or on YouTube, what will happen? So at the same time it's a little bit scary to be a role model for the other people. And I think I myself have a role model, but I think she's perfect. But I don't know why. I don't think that I'm a perfect role model for the other people.
I mean, yeah, no, I can get the idea. I don't think anyone who maybe sees himself as being in that area of responsibility probably has complete confidence in what they're saying. But equally, it's kind of a shame that we talk about imposter syndrome, and I really do think people are gonna listen to this podcast, for example, and see that there are possibilities, and they're going to relate to your story. I wanted to ask about how you set up your own business, and you employ teachers as well. So firstly, can you talk to me about the sort of how you built your business, and secondly, what do you look for in a English teacher beyond the qualifications that they have?
Um, Everything started, like, setting up my own business started when I actually started working on Instagram, and I gained a lot of followers in the beginning. And I've been working on Instagram for 4 years. At the beginning, it wasn't that difficult, but these days it's getting more and more difficult, because Instagram changes the algorithms on and on. And that sometimes I get bored and I don't know what to do. But I'm setting actually up the business started when I opened my Instagram page. After, I think, 3-4 months, because of having followers, I decided to launch a website. And my husband did everything, because he knows how to do these things. He's a graphic designer
Oh, okay.
and website designer, and all of the graphic things are related to my husband. He's responsible for them. So we just launched a website, and then I started recording some courses, because I realized that I cannot accept many of like private students, and even I cannot have a lot of group classes. So some people at the same time a lot of people, not some people, wanted to study on their own. Okay, so they wanted to self-study, but I knew that self-studying is not enough to learn a new language, because you need feedback. You need to be corrected in case of specifically speaking and writing. So I designed some courses for those who wanted to self-study and for those who wanted to learn English with me. Some courses that I actually taught English by recorded videos, and at the same time with the team to correct their mistakes, to give them feedback and the other things. And another course, like not another course, let's say other courses for those who wanted to self-study, just to give them a detailed plan based on their goals and to correct their mistakes in case in writing and in speaking. So because of these things, I had to actually ask the other people, hire people to work with me, some teachers to correct these students, some admins. And so I have a team. It is not a big team, but I have a team now. And in order to actually hire them, because mainly they are my colleagues that I know them, I know how good they are. So I didn't interview them, for example,
Right.
because I knew them. Okay, I knew how they teach, I knew their level of GE. Even some of them are much better than me and more experienced than me, but I had the platform with a lot of students and they didn't have, and they accepted to work with me. So that's the story of having my own business. But I should say that now everything is changing. Now I've closed some of my courses and I'm designing new courses, not only for the English, not only for Iranian students, but also for people from the other countries, courses that I talk only in English in.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. We've got a few more questions to ask you, but first of all, we're just going to take a short break and we'll get right back to you. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, perfect. Another perfect section. Thank you very much. It's to sort of, because you've not done a podcast before, and because we record clips and that kind of thing. Just kind of sort of let you know. Just sort of let you know the process a bit. We take maybe 4 or 5 quotes where like someone's given a particularly good answer, and we use that to like learn more about person. Learn more about their story, listen to a podcast and that kind of thing. And sometimes when you're talking to someone, it's kind of hard to imagine like what the best bits will be, and not necessarily in a bad way, but you sort of don't really know. But what's a really good recording when you're just like, we're going to be spoiled for choice. There's like so much good stuff in here. Like we'll have to be really careful, but we won't pick out. And this is definitely one of those. So yeah, like if you ever end up doing your own podcast, you'll know what it's like when it's just like, oh, this is okay. I know what people are going to respond to here. It's going to be really good. Nice one. So we'll talk a little bit about social media, a bit about kind of the future, because you talked about how you're going to do more courses and that kind of thing. It's a really, really exciting time. And then we'll kind of wrap up. So yeah. So we've got maybe about 5-10 minutes to go. If that's all right.
Okay.
Cool.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. And we're back with Roya Abedi. Now, we've talked a couple of times about how quickly things grew on Instagram, about how there was a sort of ready-made audience there, and you were able to build up your business from that. So when you have your own business and you have such a successful social media presence, how much time goes into, maintaining the Instagram and kind of, because the videos that you do are really, really good and they're really popular. They get like hundreds of thousands, millions even of views and that kind of thing. How do you have to sort of divide your time between teaching and creating content? Like, what's that like?
This is like a full-time job. If you want to create content, I didn't tell you, but I used to be a content creator before being an English teacher. And now I'm using that skill to produce content and to put on my own platforms like YouTube and Instagram. But it's like a full-time job, because at first you have to film the video, you need a lot of devices like camera, I don't know, like the lighting system, like mic, and I have all of them. But normally at weekends, we record the videos. By we, I mean my husband and I record some videos. But the most difficult thing is the idea of the video. You have to think about a lot of different factors, like, is it going to be helpful for the students? And what sorts of problems this video is going to solve? And I have to think about these things. I have to make a detailed plan. But thank God I have my husband, and with the help of him, we can do all of these things, I mean, having a plan to produce the content, like to edit the content, because after that I just record the videos in front of the camera, and after that he edits the video, he publishes, he does everything related to like social media. But I should say that it's like a full-time job, and you cannot manage if you are working in another place like me and you don't have another person like an editor or admin to help you cannot do it on your own. Absolutely no.
Well, no, it's an awful lot of work. I completely agree. And in terms of those videos, in terms of YouTube and Instagram, have you had any moments where you've been surprised by the reaction to a post or to a video where, you know, it's ended up being more helpful than you could have imagined or more popular than you could have imagined? Has that happened to you?
When you publish a video and it gets a lot of views, there is this possibility that you face a lot of haters at the same time, you know. So and I had this, I've experienced this, and still I know that even in the future, for example, I was talking about one scholarship in Italy in one of my videos, scholarship in Italy, the one that I have right now. And a lot of people came and said, okay, no, bullshit, you are telling lies, and this is not the truth, and don't trust these people. A lot of comments like that. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is my experience. I did so. I wanted to help people. Why? So yes, I got surprised by the reaction of the people. And some other times, some videos that I didn't expect actually to gain a lot of followers, to gain a lot of attention, but they did. And there is a video, short video, like a reel. I just filmed my laptop and my book and my AirPod, and I shared my experience, how I learned English. And it didn't actually take a lot of time. I don't know, in half an hour, and it got millions of views.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I still, I'm confused. I don't know how Instagram works, you know? After working on this platform for 4 years, I don't know how it works.
It's not an exact science, I don't think. There's so many things where, and I'm sure, like, you know, the people who do social media for the TEFL Org could probably attest to this. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to catch fire, you know. So, but there's a really important point there about kind of visibility, and you talked before about how kind of growing up in Iran, there weren't a lot of people that you could look to as kind of examples of the kind of career path that you've had. And we talked about role models and that kind of thing as well. But, you know, although you've said that you've got a sort of element of imposter syndrome and that kind of thing, do you not feel an immense sense of pride at the fact that you're a visible online Iranian woman who not only is, you've chosen your own career, you've chosen your own career path, but you're doing it to such a successful degree, and you know you're living and working in a place that you know you wanted to live and work. Does that not feel like a source of pride for you? Because surely, you know, it should be.
I don't know how to answer this question. You know, there are a lot of people who want to be successful, like especially on Instagram and the other platforms. And I can give them pieces of advice, but the thing is, I cannot tell them what to do or what not to do, you know, because everybody is like, every person has their own unique personality, situation, and so on. So the thing that I normally tell them is that if you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you want to be an English teacher, or if you want to work on Instagram, you have to be patient, you have to be passionate, and you need to continue on and on without any breaks. Because, for example, I work even on weekends, you know, I don't have any weekends, even now, even when I was in Iran. So this is my lifestyle. So if you have a goal and you want to pursue it, you have to work hard. And this is, I cannot tell them what to do, but I can give them pieces of advice.
I mean, working hard, like you have, is a good piece of advice. I think that was a really, really good and inspirational kind of point to sort of end on. So, Roya, it's been fantastic speaking to you today. Finally, where can people find you? What should people look up if they want to know more about you?
Thank you very much again. As I told you, I think now on Instagram, which is Roya Abedi official, and YouTube, which is Roya Abedi, and even on LinkedIn with my name, Roya Abedi, people can find me. But soon I'm gonna create another YouTube channel only in English for people all around the world.
Well, Roya, we're going to keep up with that. It's going to be fascinating, and we wish you the absolute best of luck. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me again. And it was an incredible experience talking to you and being here.